Once upon a time, in Soho, in the heart of London, there lived a young Canadian artist. One day, he had an idea. He would make a 90-minute animated feature film based on the art and folklore of the Middle East. Today, 14 years later, after spending £1.5 million, the animator still has 80 minutes of film to finish and £10 million to find. The animator is Richard Williams. The film is called The Thief Who Never Gave Up.
Started animation was that I saw what you could do with it. If you were Rembrandt today, you wouldn't be able to resist animation. Instead of doing etchings, he'd be making stuff move, I would think. But it's a remarkable medium. You can do anything. You can change it, you see. And if you're playing a chorus, if you're improvising on an instrument, you have to do it then, that's it. But with this stuff, you can just keep fixing it. You can improvise, you can plan it, you have total flexibility with animation. It's just that nobody has really, outside of the early Disneys and a few interesting, short-lived excitement, there's never, well, who knows, I'm just making one picture, but one big picture with all the stuff I know packed in like a triple-decker sandwich. It's just jammed. The story is of a prophecy. They have these three ancient gold balls above an ancient minaret. And if the balls are ever taken away, the city will come to destruction and death. The thief, who is an idiot, steals the three golden balls. And the city is then saved, as the prophecy has decreed, by the simplest soul, which is this cobbler. And he destroys, or causes, unwittingly almost, the destruction of the giant death machine. So it's like a dream. The whole thing is in the language of a dream. I always did my personal work while I was doing commercial work to get the money to do my personal work. So instead of going out and buying a yacht or whatever, or getting drunk on it, I would go back to work and do my personal work, because that's the reason I'm doing it. I mean, wouldn't choose to spend my life. I think I've made over 2,500 commercials or worked on. Well, that wouldn't be my choice of a life career, or doing fancy wrappings for feature films or making little shorts. I mean, naturally, you want to practice your craft. Well, the money comes from the commercial activities. When I was 5, I saw Snow White, and my mother was an illustrator, so I was a sophisticated little kid. I'd grown up in commercial art studios, and I knew that those were drawings, all done, and I wanted to be an animator. I visited Disney's when I was 15, and they took me in and did stories about me, and then when I was about 16, I went into a room full of Rembrandts, and I suddenly realized what all this art stuff was about. And so I scrapped animation, and I did cartoons for money occasionally, and I did quite a lot of illustration for money. And then I painted the rest of the time. But I couldn't stand the art world. I couldn't stand the idea of doing paintings for rich industrialists' wives and that whole art world. It was just repulsive as a way of life. I suddenly saw what animation could do. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to go into, oh, that's going to be horrible. I'll have to go in and be a commercial artist again. I don't want to do that. I mean, in order to get the money, to get the equipment, to get the knowledge, to, oh dear. I thought, I'll do that when I'm 40. And and I tried to stop. I spent 6 months trying not to do it. And then I realized, oh my gosh, you can put the sound with it, you know, and you can use music in that. Oh, Lord. And I just got more and more involved and started my first film, The Little Island. Well, to make Little Island, I was doing tons of commercials. I starved for the first year I was here. It was a terrible shock to me, you see, because I was so successful in Canada. I just waltz in, I'd do ads, I'd do this, that, you know. And when I said, well, I'm here, folks, and then they said, oh, do come here often, you know, or whatever it was. And I said, well, can I do some, you know, nobody gave me any work, which is a terrible shock. And finally, after about a year of living on peanut butter and fish and chips and milk, I started getting some work. Bob Godfrey helped me. He had a biographic films then, and I worked in the basement, and I did work in kind. I would do some commercial animation or commercial stills, drawings or something. And then he'd let me use the camera, so he did a barter system. Anyway, I made this silly little short, Love Me, Love Me, which really was a Mickey take of the commercials I'd worked on. It was simple as hell, with a white background, and it was just silly. I did sort of cross between advertising commercials and Listen with Mother. And it was just for me. It was a private joke for me, and it didn't cost much to make.
Once upon a time, there lived a man named Squidgy Bod. Everything he did was wrong. Everything he touched either broke or fused or tore. His clothes were either too big or too small. But everybody loved him. When he went out, dogs would lick him. Horses would wave their tails at him. And little children would follow him.
I went on a weekend to, it was a film weekend to Copenhagen. And Clive Donner was there, Tony Richardson, and a whole bunch. Lindsay Anderson was supposed to go, but he didn't go, and I went in his place because they had some animation studio people over there or something. Anyway, I went as a representative of British cinema, and I got loaded at a party. Clive Donner had spent 5 years doing baby food commercials at J. Walter Thompson's. And he just filmed The Caretaker, which I thought was a terrific job, and I was jumping all over him saying, this is a really good, terrific job. How could you stand to do 5 years of commercials? And he made a big defense for the commercials, and I said, oh, rubbish, you know, I just do them for the money. And he told me off. He said, why don't you just stop being so smart and just try and do a good one. Try and give it all you've got, for one. And I thought, I will. I'll try it, all right, I'll try it. So I tried it on this Guinness at the Albert Hall. I did the best job I was capable of then. I think it absolutely stinks now. I mean, it's amazing how little I mean, just awful. But at the time it was thought to be very good, and it was I won a whole bunch of awards, and that really helped set me up. The charge was a terrific break. We thought, gee, we're going to be a featured part of not just titles. We're doing, what do you call it, organic links. We were doing chunks in the main picture. I drove everybody into the ground, and I was driven into the ground. We were trying to do something as usual, that we weren't quite good enough to do, and so it was very hard on everybody. There were only about 5 of us who could really do it, or 4, whatever it was, and we just worked ourselves half to death. We finished just in the nick of time.
In 1972, the film industry recognized that Richard Williams had finally arrived. He was awarded an Oscar for his television feature, A Christmas Carol.
I am the ghost of Christmas present. You have never seen the like of me before.
Spirit, conduct me where you will. If you have aught to teach me, well, let me profit by it.
Touch my robe.
As they walked, the spirit shed from his torch a few drops of good cheer on the passers-by. They stopped to bless the humble dwelling of the Cratchit family.
And how did little Tim behave?
As good as gold. He told me coming home that he hoped the people saw him in the church because he was a cripple, and it might be pleasant to them to remember upon Christmas Day
Come on, Timmy.
who made lame beggars walk and blind men see.
Richard Williams sees himself as continuing the tradition of the great Hollywood animators. In 1974, he asked 2 of them to work with him on the titles for the return of the Pink Panther. Ken Harris, famous for the Road Runner and Bugs Bunny, and the man who animated the Queen in Snow White and the Mushroom Dance in Fantasia, Art Babbit.
You mean this is too many?
Just be tick, 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 tick.
Yeah, that's it. You do it in 24.
That's interesting.
You do it in 24.
Yeah.
You could do a kind of a double bounce in there, couldn't you? One tick,
Oh, that's funny.
one tick,
Tick,
one
tick,
tick,
tick.
one, with a double bounce and
Yeah.
In the real animators, the elite crew who really have mastered it, a master animator like Ken Harris or the great ones at Disney's, it's like Robert Frost. It's a gift word. Only a poet, another poet will appoint somebody a poet. And it happened with me. When Ken Harris, who's now unfortunately dead, he animated half of our picture of The Thief. And he came here when he was 69 years old, 14 years ago. And we worked with him for a year. I used to work in the next room there with him, or in here. And I was both his student and his director one day in there. This was after several hours, and I was getting the drawings right, and he said, gee, Jack, he said, you're putting them almost in the right place. And I said, well, I'm learning from you, aren't I? And he said, yeah, he said, you know, you could be an animator. And I was devastated. I just sat there for a bit. I said, excuse me, Ken. I went out and I sat on the stairs out here for a while. And I had to think, no, he's right. I mean, the reason I admired him so much is that he was the real McCoy. I had been earning my living covered in awards. I wasn't really an animator. I didn't understand how to get that snap into the drawings or the timing or just, I mean, I just did animation drawings. And anyway, so I worked like hell. I had this section of a magician with cards, which turned out in the end to be Zigzag in the picture. I even wrote the scene into the picture to use this scene. And it went on for years. I was trying to have this fellow work shuffling cards and spreading the cards out. And he's talking all at the same time. And I spent, when Ken went away, he would go away for 4 to 6 months to recover, because he was so old then. He must have been 70, 76, 77. Then he came back, and I had this scene, and we never discussed it, whether I was an animator or not. Again, I didn't. And then I ran this thing on the Moviola, which used to be across the hall, and I had it more or less right. And he looked up and he says, it was as if it was the conversation the year before. He said very grudgingly, he says, all right, he says, you are an animator.
I have power over people, though they may appear complex. For me, they fall like playing cards, and I control the decks.
Zigzag is an absolute bastard and treacherous. I mean, it's the standard classical evil Grand Vizier, but he's based on a combination of two people that I actually hate, and I didn't want to pour the hatred into it. And I always loved Vincent Price. I used to mimic him when I remember, Well, I can't do it now. It's better in the early morning.
Anyway, I'm 100% pure ham, you see, Richard. And so I just love to work. Well, he speaks a bit like that, but it's much lower. Anyway, from St. Louis, a very peculiar accent.
Anyway, I thought, if I can do Vincent Price, get Vincent Price for the voice, because I've always loved his, whatever it is he is. And I thought, that if I can pump Vincent into these two creeps that I dislike, then I'll like the character, and it'll have more humor. But then I got him down into this sort of formula with this teeny little head, and it's really a vulture, you see, it's a bird. So we whip these big shoulders on him, which are completely have grown enormously so far, and they'll obviously get wilder as it goes. He's very high up, and when I met Vincent, he's got enormously long legs, and he's way up there. You look up these legs at him, so I thought he's going to be like a marionette. And he's got several joints. He's got extra fingers and extra digits in every finger. And you'll see on the animation, it's 25 rings on each hand. And he moves like a puppet. And he's got 2 elbows, 2 shoulders on each bit, maybe 2 asses, I'm not sure. And all the parts are like cantilevered. So he's a manipulator, the master manipulator, so he himself is like a marionette, manipulating himself.
Instructions, zigzag. My kingdom will come to destruction and death.
Be calm, Serene Highness. You must catch your breath. What dawn of disaster? Why speak you of death?
I've had a dream. Hello, hello! What's today? Hey? An intelligent boy. Oh, a remarkable boy. What's today, my fine young fellow?
Today? Christmas Day!
It's Christmas Day. It's Christmas Day. And I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. Well, they can do anything they like. Of course they can.
It's not a bunch of mechanical drawings. Otherwise, anybody could do it. You just sit doing one drawing. It's the way one drawing dovetails into another, how far it is apart and how you time it. That's the skill. And then you pump personality into it. It's like Fred Astaire saying, it's very easy. All I do is I put my feet in the air and then I start to dance. Well, that's what we do. It's very akin to what Fred Astaire does. Well, will a computer do that? A computer will join, you take a side elevation, a top elevation, and a side, and it'll turn a battleship. Marvelous. But we're not animating battleships. We're animating people who are pliable, plasticity, who react like people. It's personality. They can, unless computers develop personalities, in which case they'll take over everything, isn't it? So, but it's partly fed by reading in magazines over the years that the animator does drawing number 5 and drawing number 1, drawing 5, and number 9, and then a slave puts in drawing number 3, and another slave puts in drawing number 7, and then 2 morons put in 2, 4, 6, and that's not how it's done. Sometimes you work a production system like that, but each drawing, there are no in-between drawings. They're all important. And we don't move at the same rates. We don't all move like King Kong. A King Kong could be beautifully animated by a computer. You've all seen that in animation. In comes the princess and kisses the prince, like that. Well, a computer will do that for you if you want a robot prince kissing a robot thing. But, people don't kiss like that. If you're going to animate a kiss, it's a pretty hard thing to do. You have to do it with great skill and feel. That's what the hell I've been learning for 30 years. If it isn't feel and getting in there. Rembrandt, if he painted the man in the golden helmet, you might as well say, well, we'll get a computer to do that. Program it for gold, and program it for compassion, and program it for irony, and program it for texture, and program it for drawing. It'll do it. What the hell? Well, animation hasn't got as good as the man in the golden helmet, but it could do.
My child, it is obvious to me that he is victim of the double whammy. split interlink incantation with Newt's eyeballs.
It's not an artistic, it's not an, can I say artistic wank? It ain't. It's a full-scale thing, and it has to be, I mean, just to distribute The Thief. I mean, he's got to make $50 million just to break even. So there's no question of doing it as like a little monk in the back room, even if we look like that. I mean, it's got to be a fully marketed blockbuster. It's a blockbuster film. It's got to be done like Star Wars or Lawrence of Arabia. That's what it is. And that, of course, is why it's taken us so long, because we've got armies to do. We've got that machinery and the cast of characters on a big scale. It's the mammoth ego trip of Dick Williams. Oh, it's complete. Totally.
Just about, except for one drawing, the link between what Gary was working on. That's the one, yeah. And that's the only one.
Well, we can probably... Could you do that this afternoon?
Sure.
Let's test it first. Okay. Shoot it first, and then we can...
Are the hands okay?
I don't know. No, damn it. Well, it's the basket in between. You see how far apart? I've got 1, 2, 3. You've got many fewer ribs in the basket. Like there's 4 ribs and you've got 3. 4 ribs, 3. When you go back to mine, it's 4.
Oh, I've got the spacing wrong, haven't I?
Yeah, but if you take it off the pegs, that'll...
And use the ones, the preceding one.
Yeah.
She's swinging fast there.
No, she's slowing up now, so these ones are very important. Right in here. Get that one right. If a thing's moving broadly, I mean, like Teddy Lanham things through, you know, it's flying through the room. He's got them doing color tracing on a pot and pan that's flying. Nobody's ever going to see it. You have I mean, they'll never, but when things are close together, that's when you really have to work. Like the drawing, when the basket's at the end of its curve, you know, it's going up, slowing up. That's where you work real hard. And then when it's moving broadly, nobody's going to see it anyway.
So do you think it'll work on the fast movement?
Yeah.
Oh.
Let's try the lip sync.
Mystic fumes. Show me the way.
Mystic fumes. Show me the way. Show me how this cup to lay.
Seems like when she pulls the thing, you go rattle, rattle. It's like the rattle, rattle would be a result. So she go, and you have a little rattle.
Yeah.
But when she lets go, boing, and it goes rattle, 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 rattle. That seems to be...
Ah, I've got a bigger one on another track to come. Shall I just play
yes,
this one again?
That's good. You see, it feels wrong there. That's good. That's good.
Right, well, I'll show you the next one. I've got a deeper one for the sort of length of pipe going down into the hole.
Ah. It sounds like a dog running around with a bunch of tin cans tied in its tail. A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever they are. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a big one for the turn on the end. Squeak, squeak.
That's it. And with her little, you know.
All her noises, yeah.
Perfect. That's good. Ah, it's good. I see. So if you use the other one, the tin can, very sparing.
Yes, very lightly.
And that's
and
more real.
There's two of those to double it up and echo it when it's down in the hole in the ground.
That's good.
This is squeaks to cover on the loose pipes to go in with the rattle we heard.
That's it. Yeah! Yeah! That's it. And then, yeah. Darling pet. That's it. That's it. That's what I've been looking for 2 years. This is a culmination, what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to regroup animation. See, when you had the great Disney development, it was only through the Disney machine that you could do that, or the Disney, whatever that was. Now, then when it all broke in from the 50s, 60s, 70s, all the equipment became available to individual artists. And I'm one of those. What I did was go back and learn the craft. And what I'm trying to do is put the whole damn thing together again and take it in a new direction and then leave it. And then I'll go off and do my own things, which I think wouldn't be very commercial. I would go much more heavily into music, either full-time to music, or since what I always did was draw and paint and wanted to play, now that I can play, I'd be drawing, painting, and playing. Wanted to do it, and I only found that I was really capable of doing it in the last 5 years. It was a big shock. I was playing in New York with a terrific band, and I suddenly thought, my God, this is what I always wanted to do. And I didn't realize it when I was 45 or something.
Asked me up to her place, and I decided to play her along.
I'll slip into something cooler.
I flicked a Tic Tac, the 2-flavored mint. The smooth outer coating surrendering to the inner mint played mind games with my taste buds. And I noticed it was my last. I had to make a decision, stay with a broad or go get a fresh pack of Tic Tac. No contest.
With a commercial, it's very different than the way we work on the feature. It's a whole totally different thing. The agency always have their idea. I mean, we don't have the ideas for them, so they come in with the concept, which they've usually tested. They've usually done a test film called an animatic, which is just they'll get an illustrator to film a storyboard with their soundtrack, or rough soundtrack, and they send that out for market research. So that's already been to, you know, a selection of housewives and grandfathers or whatever it is, testing it. And they have the test results, and they've gone through all their committee meetings and all their stuff. And then they hunt around for the company who's going to make the thing. And so they come here because we're famous for our bag of tricks.
There came a time when natural resources became so precious that men were forced to seek them in alien environments. From all over Earth, men and materials were gathered, machines the like of which had never been seen before. This mighty endeavor required a vast investment and a leap of technology as great as that which placed the first men on the moon.
And you can make it in minutes. You just add the powder to fresh milk and whisk. So it's very wholesome, and it contains honey. But most important of all, it's delicious.
My heart's a flutter, it tastes like butter. That's only half my story told. For I can spread it in December, even though the weather's cold.
Oh, blow the man down, bullies, blow the man down. Beware, blow the man down. Blow the man down, bullies, blow him away. Give me some time to blow the man down. We blow to the bar on the 13th of May. Blow the man down, come down,
Now that you have acquired the power, my son, you must swear to me by the sacred sword of Jovan that you will use the power only for good, never for evil.
That's when I had the idea. It was a gamble, but I figured even all working together, they'd never pass 11 plus.
Fixe Füchse wissen, dass man mit dem Bauspargeld von Schwäbisch Hall nicht nur ein Haus bauen, sondern auch renovieren und modernisieren kann.
There's a chap called John Webster who's the creative director of Bose Massimi Pollitt, and they're one of the leading creative agencies. And he's very unusual because he actually has original ideas. He's quite brilliant. And he came in with the Cresta Bear series we used to do years ago. It was his idea. And he did these very funny drawings of bears, which we used as the model.
Baby, I will be your ever-loving fan. Give me the drink I really love, a bottle or a can. It's Frothy Man. I don't want to drink the ocean, 'cause man, that's really rough. But when it comes to Cresta, here's one bear that just can't get enough. It's Frothy Man.
And John came in one day with a commercial where the bear was on skates and couldn't skate well, and he threw that fit thing, and I thought it was hilarious to do that on skates because he's obviously going to go off balance the whole time. And being Canadian, I skated a fair bit, and our lectures, I mean, Art Babbit had just finished giving us his first month's course of lectures. And so we were all into where's the weight in the body. I was weight crazy, you know. If it's a 300-pound bear, is he going to stagger back this way? There's all this stuff. I thought, oh, give me the skating one. Dick Purdom wanted we fought for it, and anyway, I took it because I was the boss. And he got a nice one. We used to do about 3 bears at once. Anyway, I did the skating one. And for the first time, I got carried away. I thought, oh, I know I can do this and I can do that. And I rang up John and said, I'm getting carried away here. I wanted to, can I just improvise a little on this? And he said, oh yeah, sure, good, good. So I animated the whole thing my way, and I thought it was absolutely hilarious. We ran it, we were all falling around, and I thought, I really enjoyed it. And he came in and I ran it, and he said, well, what? Yeah, he says, that's fine, that's very nice, very nice. He said, what happened to my idea? I thought, oh no. And I suddenly saw I'd taken a trip on his idea. He didn't want my idea, he wanted his idea done with my bag of tricks at his service. Quite right, too. So I took the whole thing and threw it in the wastebasket and started again. And we used it as it had a temporary effect at least. It was a public hanging of me, by me, to the studio and say, see what happens when you don't follow the brief? See what happens when you get carried away about animation? Or don't you like the little bit with the skate and the little bit where he almost flies in the air? The hell with that. He wanted his idea, which was very funny. So I did it his way, which he loved, and it went out and it won a lot of prizes, and I never thought it was as funny as what I was going to do. But the hell with that.
You know 2 reasons I left the North Pole? First, the frothy crest of with all the fruity flavors. Second, I ain't too hot on the ice, man.
I'm very proud to say we must have 175 awards, mostly for advertising things, but there's some good film ones in there. And they're splattered all over the walls. Because they're professional armor. I mean, our clients, because I looked like the office boy, I used to be, and I wasn't treated with very much respect, or clients would work me over quite a bit. But when we had a gauntlet of gold prizes, and they open the door and they have to go down the gauntlet of prizes to get to the boardroom, it has an effect on them. And I say, oh, it's a pile of old rubbish, which in a way it is a pile of old rubbish. But it's like I point me to Her Majesty the Queen. You know, I mean, you know, what have I got if I haven't got those awards? I've got nothing. I mean, I've got the building and the staff that's in it. You know, and an unmade picture. It's what I tried to do to finally attract the finance of the picture, and it seems to be somewhat succeeding, is that you surround everybody with consistently good work, and then eventually somebody will say, oh, gee, maybe they can do something. Or maybe Williams, you know, maybe they're capable of making a greatly successful picture. So those awards are half the battle, I suppose.
But the awards are not the whole battle with commercial clients. Earlier this year, Richard Williams' Hollywood studio was commissioned to make a series of commercials for America's life and health assurance companies. This project became known as The Tree. Unknown to Richard Williams, the woman supervising the project had fallen ill, and things started to go wrong.
The first thing I heard was a Friday night here. I was stumbling out at about 7:30, and the phone goes, and it's the Tree people from New York saying, Williams, you get your goddamn ass here by 9 o'clock Monday morning. I said, what's the matter? What's the matter? I said, 9. I said, can I come Tuesday, please? Because I've got a whole ton of stuff. I've got to be in my... You'll have your ass here 9 o'clock Monday morning. You're personally responsible. So I said, what happened? He said, the work is abysmal. It's terrible. The concept has died. So I had to go through 3 days, or 2 days, maybe it only seems like 3. 2 days of meetings with all the heads of all the insurance companies and saying, it's my fault, it's my fault. And they're spreading drawings on the floor saying, see, these drawings are terrible. I'm going to fix them. I fix them. If I can get on the plane now, I'll fix them. I said, we can do the job. We've got an Oscar. We've got 150 prizes. Don't worry, we're the only people we can do it. And Georgine's been sick. She's been sick. And don't worry, don't worry. I carted the whole thing back and dumped it on all our people. Said, well, we're 6 weeks late. The agency has no faith in us. We now have to make a talent display, which is also a waste of time, because we had caused it by not starting right, because then you have to allay fear and incite greed and everything. So we did all that, and that took about 3 weeks. Think of, oh, that's it, that's it. Oh, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah. The slow one, isn't it, Alan?
First one.
Is Wendy here?
No.
Isn't that interesting? Can I just say, on the tree, if they won't give us the time, you have to drop the quality. I mean, you just drop it, and then you drop it again. If you're doing two sets of leaves a day, you have to do 4. The next day you have to do 6 or 8, and you just do. You know, this is commercials are an impact business. You're out to make an impact, and they're going to get a great impact with that film. I mean, it's a unique, trailblazing production. So, really, just belt it. Finish, you don't know whether you've done a good job or a bad job, really. But I think we did very well under pressure. We did deliver, and we delivered well.
The money to finance The Thief Who Never Gave Up comes largely from work on commercials. But the pursuit of excellence has sometimes led Richard Williams to spend more on the making of a commercial than he receives as a fee. Also this year, commercial work has been more difficult to come by. To continue work on The Thief, Richard Williams' animator had to become Richard Williams' salesman. The private rooms of a well-known Soho restaurant became the setting for a series of lunches with advertising agencies, at which the animator had to sell his talents. Rusty Owen-Jones, newly hired for her organising ability, supported Richard Williams at these meetings.
How much do you think the last year, or what's been going on in the last year, is due to you just not being around?
Well, funnily,
crudely negligence, or is that unfair?
Absentee landlord. In fact, the irony is that I have been around the last year, but I've been in my room, working. Mostly on commercials, isn't it? No, you weren't there. I wasn't watching all the production elements at all. I was hoping everything would fix itself. I mean, Russell, for who's in the next room, our best animators in the next room from me, and he burst in one day and he said, "God damn it," he said. I mean, he's probably British, but I can't, it's Northern, actually, I can't do it. But he said, we want our editing back. We want our camera back. I can't work under these conditions. And I realized that those good people are in my place, and they trust me only because they know that the money isn't going on my yacht, which I don't have and never will, or, you know, the profits go back into the work. So they trust me. They were getting very cheesed off with me because Dick wasn't watching. But Dick finally got up and opened his eyes again, and that's why I got rusty. At least it's working now.
And I take him by the scruff of his neck and say, listen, you don't want to hear this, but there's a problem on this job, there's a problem on that job. You don't need to get involved. Yes.
This is really where you mastered the 2.5 dimensions. Perspective, don't you think?
But always, whenever there is a spare moment, it's back to The Thief.
Taking individual bits and having their own, not exactly point of perspective, but their parallel point of perspective, which is what the Persians seem to do.
The last 3 years, we've been trembling on the verge of getting full finance. We've had some finance. And we didn't, until 6 months ago, we didn't do a proper budget. And then we got a very good accountant in. And we finally produced the budget, which is £10 million, or $20 million, which isn't ridiculously enormous for a movie, but for original material and an animated film, it's a big risk. It means the thing has to gross $60 million it has to be a hit. But it would take 2 years, wouldn't it? I wonder if it would be suicide to start it before we got the money. Just to start it. I can't wait to finish it. I wish it was finished now. But it's not a... I mean, a lot of my friends are saying, oh, he'll never finish that thing. He just uses it to keep him sane while he does advertising. And I say, well, okay, if you're so smart, you put, what is it, $3 million we've put into The Thief? That's a hell of a hobby.